So this is my second take because my camera just died and didn't, save the video. I was in the middle of telling a story, and I think I'm just going to skip the beginning part because fuck you, camera. I had also told a story of like my first time drinking, but it's not that significant. My first drink was Sambuca. There you go. That's the story. And I didn't want to go into too many details because it's associated with my first boyfriend, who was a terrible human being. But we're going to gloss over that. I would like to put out a disclaimer that I'm now going to have to make again because the first video just decided to fuck off and die. So the disclaimer is that I'm in no way endorsing that you take drugs illegally. The narcotics that I took were in Amsterdam, where they are fully legal, and I would just like to share an experience. I'm not endorsing you to take drugs underage, illegally, or irresponsibly. If you're going to take a narcotic, take it responsibly, and if you're going to do them legally. All right, disclaimer out of the way. I looked up like YouTube's terms and conditions, terms of service, and I was figuring out whether or not this was an okay video to make or if this would like incriminate me in some way, but I don't see how it would because I didn't do anything illegal. So yeah, there you go. There's your disclaimer. But I wanted to, so this is the part 2 of my Amsterdam experience, and my part 3 will go into in the last part of the video. I like lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, I'm still ill. Sorry if my voice sounds a bit funny, but I am still ill, and I'm significantly better, so don't worry about it. I made a tweet about tuberculosis. I was exaggerating. It's just the flu. I'll get over it. I am fine. But thank you for all your well wishes and, all your thoughts and prayers. I really appreciate them, even if, they're just moral support. They're good. I like them. So yeah, I wanted to talk about 2 different experiences. So the 2 different kinds of narcotics that we took in Amsterdam that are fully legal are marijuana, which we did on 2 nights, and the other one is Truffles, which we as a group did on 1 day. So yeah, that's what we did. To explain Truffles, because I think a lot of people are disillusioned because I made like a high tweet about shrooms. So Truffles and magic mushrooms are like within the same drug category. Truffles are legal in Amsterdam. Magic mushrooms are not legal in Amsterdam. The magic mushroom is the part at the top, and the truffles are like the root part that stays under the ground. And those are legal in Amsterdam, and that's what we did on Sunday of Balie, I think. Yeah. So let's go into the weed story. Now, I never had any kind of like desire to try weed at all because I'm a rookie at everything in life since leaving Islam. And honestly, I struggle with alcohol as is because my tolerance isn't like super, super high. I mean, compared to like my very close group of friends, like my group of friends that I had before joining the ex-Muslim community, I can say for a fact that my tolerance is the highest amongst them, but none of them are like seasoned drinkers. I have since found out that my tolerance is not as high as I thought it was. So with that in mind, I've never really had a desire to try weed. And honestly, like I work in schools, I genuinely did not feel like I needed to try weed because I just smell the fumes off my students and I just assume that that's having some effect on me. But yeah, we did weed in Amsterdam. And we did them in 2 forms, so there's smoking and there's edibles. I'm not a huge fan of smoking in general. Like, I don't mind you smoking around me, but me smoking myself, like actually physically doing the act, I'm sick, excuse me. Yeah, I don't like breathing in smoke. So I did very little of that, and I instead tried the edibles, which were very optimistically called space cakes. And in the previous recording, I was in the middle of telling you about the time that myself and a group of my friends, I don't know if anyone wants to be mentioned, so I'm not going to mention anyone by name, we went to the red light district and got super fucking high on space cakes. And we didn't do anything in the red light district. We just went there to sightsee. Like, we didn't pay a lady of the night. We didn't go to see any sex shows, which were 50 euros for an hour. You should just imagine watching two people just fucking for an hour for 50 fucking... Are you kidding? That is a waste of time and a waste of money. So we didn't really do much in the red light district except just like sightsee. And the moment that I knew I was high was when my friend, who was already high out of his mind, had told me that I'm really hungry. And I was like, yeah, I am as well. And I feel like that's normal when you have weed, or when you did weed. And he was like, I really feel like having a falafel. And I just started dying laughing. I even start dying laughing when I'm telling this story to other people, like as a normal sober person. So being high, I was even more just amused by this. I was like falling all over myself, absolutely fucking like, what? And he looked at me and he was like, what? And I was like, you want a falafel in the red light district? How are you going to find a falafel place in the red light district? And he was like, I saw one back there. And I just started dying laughing even more. And my drug mother, who again I will not name by his actual name, but let's call him Jesus. He's Jesus. He's my drug Jesus. Okay. He like saw me tripping over myself and he just got so excited because he's wanted to get me that high for so long. And he like kissed my forehead. We were like jumping around. It was a good time. The only like downside was that on the way back we had decided to get a cab. And in Amsterdam, because they have a lot of canals, driving in Amsterdam takes a long time because you have to like weave around all the canals. It's like the slowest mode of transport. That's why they have bicycles, and that's why they have trams and overground trains and things like that. So yeah, we got in this cab and I just got super, super suspicious because this was like a 50-minute cab ride to a place that was like a 20-minute walk. And we had decided to get a cab because we were all high out of our minds. A couple of the guys had decided to do nitrous as well. And I just thought, you know what? I'm a rookie. I'm not going to mix narcotics. It just didn't seem like a good plan. So I had decided to stay out of that, but it didn't change the fact that we were all high out of our fucking minds. So we had decided, like responsible adults, to take a cab back to the hotel. But because it was like a 50-minute cab ride, I just got super, super paranoid. And I thought that this was like a fake cab and we were all getting kidnapped. And I think that's fairly normal when you're high on any kind of drug. It's normal to be self-conscious, suspicious, whatever. But when I was telling that story, the specific story of the cab ride and what was going on in my brain, later on, another person who was in the cab with me said that they were thinking the same thing. We were at an ex-Muslim event. The cab driver was Muslim. He thought that we were going to get jumped on. And like, I had exactly the same thoughts because I was like, in my brain, I was planning like, how would we like fight these people off? Like once the cab arrived, like, were they gonna like blindfold us, put a sack over our head? Like what was gonna be the protocol, and what would be like the defense? Like, were we just gonna start fighting it out? It was a strange cab ride. And it didn't help that some of the people, who I will not name, not because this is a drug story, but because it's just embarrassing, some of the people in the cab ride just could not keep their mouths shut and got very impatient with the cab driver. And we are eternally grateful that the cab driver was so patient with us. But yeah, that was my weed experience. And then after we got out of the cab, I stayed out with my drug Jesus, and we just, stood by a canal and we were talking for a while. It just made me very, very tired. That's the only thing that I can really say about my weed experience. But then the next day, during the middle of the day, so this was like, I want to say like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. This was after Mimsy's panel. We had gone out, you know, a nondescript group of people, again, because I don't want to bring up any names. Maybe, no, you know what? I'm just not going to risk it, and I'm not going to say any names. But we had gone out, and we had, because I wanted to try psychedelics. I wanted to try truffles. That was the one thing that I wanted to try. It was actually the wish of someone else who wanted to try them and didn't get to try them, and is very bitter that he didn't get to try them. But I wanted to try psychedelics, so we went out to get these truffles, and the guy behind the counter, he was like explaining how it worked, and he was explaining what we would experience. So like visuals, you know, sensations, all those things. I actually have the lid of the box that the truffles came in. I'm not going to show it because I don't know if that's allowed or not. I'm just not going to risk it. I'm sorry. Censorship is not fun, but it's also not a rule I made up. So I'm not going to show it. But he had like a scale and of like really mild psychedelics to really strong psychedelics, and because we weren't fucking pussies, we didn't go for the lightest one. We went for like a middle tier. It was called Forbidden Fruit, aptly named for the fact that we were at a conference called Celebrating Dissent. So we thought, yeah, why not? So yeah, that was the one that we bought, and it was like, I think it was like 15, it was between 12.50 and 15 euros for, I've forgotten how many grams, but it was like 10 grams or something. And they come in a sealed container as well as like sealed packaging, so they were like completely airtight plastic it was in. So we got back to the event. This was during the event. So we got back to the event. We sat at, I believe it was the identity panel. We sat right at the back. We walked in like we were going to do something absolutely fucking terrible. And I believe in most people's opinion, it would be fucking terrible to get high while one of your good friends is, you know, speaking about something very, very important. But we all walked in late, so we were all like beelining for the back. And we all sat at the back. And, you know, the bag that we had bought all our goodies in, we just started passing around everyone's shit. So I took my Truffles container and I opened the seal packaging. And when you open it, they're like little pieces. They kind of look like garlic cloves. And when you taste them, they have like this nutty texture and flavor, but also extremely chemical. Like they taste like absolute garbage, because it's all chemically. But I don't know if that was the genuine taste of the actual truffle, or if it was just the plastic, like the plastic taste. I don't know. But it was very, very chemically. But the way the guy at the store had told us to take them was to just eat them. Like, don't just take one and just sit with it. They come in a packet and you get that amount. And he was like, just have all of them, sit back and chill out. The other thing he said was, if you have some like really deep shit going on in your head, like bad shit, like you just got out of a relationship or you're going through some kind of like emotional crisis, not a good idea to do truffles. But I was in a happy place, was in Amsterdam with my friends, had no, you know, concerns. So I was like, yeah, I feel like I'm in the right mind to do this. And I was. So I'm sitting at the back of this very important panel, and my friend who wanted to do mushrooms and was bitterly disappointed that he didn't get to, was sitting right next to me, and he was like, you guys went out and did that. I can't do this during this because I want to hear these people speak. And I was like, yeah, you can hear them speak. You'll just be high doing it. It's all going to be uploaded to the internet. If I forget everything, I can watch it again. So I took them all. I took all the drugs. I took my portion of the truffles, and it took about 20 to 30 minutes to kick in. And there's like a slow build up. There's like a slow build up to you becoming high. So like you start to notice like the lights get brighter, the feelings and sensations get stronger, and slowly you reach your high. And like as soon as I sort of reached that point where I was getting a high, I like looked over to my friends and I was like, okay, they've kicked in. And they were like, okay, cool. And I started getting like tunnel vision. Like normal people have periphery. Women have quite a big periphery. Like because I looked after kids, and I think this is why. I don't know if it's scientifically sound. Don't jump down my throat. My periphery is like almost not behind me, but like almost behind me. But my vision had shrank to like here. Like I could just see the fringe of my hair and about up to here. Like that was all I could see. And that was bizarre. And I welcomed it. I was like, wow, this is cool. The other thing, like other people who had done Truffles with me had said that they got like crazy visuals. I found that my feeling sensation just went through the roof. Like I was feeling my fingertips like I had never felt my fingertips before. So my friend who was bitter about the fact that he did not get to do Truffles had moved because he was bitter. He had moved to a different seat. So there was an empty seat beside me and I had decided to pull it down and just rub the seat with my hand. And it was like I had never felt like wool or cotton or whatever synthetic fucking thing it was made out of. And I was just rubbing this thing like, wow, I've never thought that something could feel so soft. And someone who was sitting across from me looked at me and she was like, what the fuck are you doing? And I was like, I don't know, I'm high. And she got super paranoid because she was also high. If I cough in this video, by the way, I'm not editing it out. I am ill. Deal with it. So yeah, the sensations were very, the feelings were very, 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 very strong. Like anything I touched, like I started touching like the clothes that I was wearing and like trying to feel, because everything that I was wearing was synthetic except for my skirt. My skirt was cotton. And I thought, wait, maybe I can tell like the difference between fabrics. And like also sitting back and listening to this humanist conference, like they were talking about identity politics, sitting back and listening to that while I was high. It was one of the most emotional things that I had ever felt, because here was someone that Jimmy was on this panel, and Jimmy was talking about identity politics, and he was making such good points. And I was just like, any point he made, I just felt as though I needed to tell him how well he was doing, because I was so proud of him. And like, I feel like that level of proud that I had was even more amplified because I was high. And he was making genuinely good points. I rewatched the entire panel. I remembered most of it, despite being as high as I was. I remembered most of it. Halima did her poem and she looked gorgeous. I remember going up to her after the panel discussion was over and telling her, you looked like a bird of paradise. She was wearing like light blue with a dark blue backdrop and like dark blue and green backdrop. She looked beautiful. It was just amazing. Like I cannot imagine having like that trip be better doing anything else. Like and I will brag about this, everyone else that I got high with went home. I was the only one who stayed in the venue for my entire trip. I am super proud of that, and I demand to be acknowledged for it by all of you. You know who you are. But after the panel, I noticed that the things that weren't bad, but I was deficient in, were like my motor skills. So like I couldn't type very fast in my phone. Like it took me a while to like figure out. Everything was slow. If everything was slow. I also ate. I obviously went and saw my drug Jesus, right? I was like, I need to find my drug Jesus. He's gonna make me feel like this is okay. And I told him that I'm fully high. We did Truffles in the back of that panel and I'm fully high. How am I coming off? And he was like, you're fine. You're perfect. I saw you talking to people. It doesn't look like, you're gonna mess things up. And I was like, okay, thank you. And he was like, it's perfectly normal for you to be self-conscious. You are doing fine. And I was like, Thank you, drug Jesus. So I go outside and I congratulate Jimmy and I tell him, well, the first thing he says is that I'm never going out with you guys again. And I was like, okay, that is a lie. And I tell him directly to his face, I was high in the back of your panel. And he's like, what? And I was like, and despite the fact that I was high in the back of your panel, you did so fucking well. I am so fucking proud of you. And he started dying laughing. Like, all the words that he said were still ringing in my brain. Like, that's how well he did. That's how good he came across. That is how good your boy Jimmy Bangash is, okay? Like, you can be high while he is talking and you will remember every fucking thing he says because he is that fucking good, okay? That is how good your boy Jimmy Bangash is. If you're not following him, I don't know what you are doing with your life. Go and follow him. Anyways, so now is my time to shine because I'm no longer in the back of a panel. I can actually go and mingle with people. So I'm walking around, I'm talking to people, and I went and found Sahel, and I told Sahel, because Sahel is like very loving and very warm, I felt very, very, like, it would have been weird if I didn't tell him that I was high. So I went up to him and he was like, hey, how are you? And I was like, I did drugs. And he was like, okay, did you do too many? And I was like, no. And he was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I just felt like I needed to tell you that. And he was like, oh, okay, well, why don't you hang around with me? And he like looked after me for a significant portion of me being high, which was great because I just felt warm and loved. And yeah, it was great. I sat down, I ate, again, with the motor skills, I was like sitting there, like forking bits of food and trying to put them in my mouth, and like the time it took was so slow that the food would literally like sink through my fork. I don't know if that meant that the food was too soft or if I was just too slow, but that is exactly what I'm talking, like motor skills just went down the drain. I don't know if it's like that for all people, but that's what it looks like. The other thing, in terms of like visuals, the lights were brighter, and if someone had a very like significant feature about them, that would be exaggerated. So like if someone had like a big forehead, their forehead would stretch for miles while I was high. Like their forehead would be huge, and I'd be looking at them like, whoa, when did your forehead get so big? And I wouldn't say that, but it was something that I would internally think. Harris Sultan, because he's like quite a beautiful person. He has like these perfect cheekbones. His cheekbones were chiseled while I was high. Like I could not believe how high his cheekbones were. He looked, and also the suit that he was wearing was like checkered. I don't know if it was checkered, but like that kind of pattern, black and white. So he looks like a caricature. He looks like a cartoon character, and his hair was all like slicked back. He had a speech that it made sense for him to be dressed like that. It just, because I was high, all of that was just exaggerated to the nth degree. So yeah, in terms of like sound, I could hear every fucking sound my head made. So like if I ground, because I'm a tooth grinder, so if my teeth would be like grinding, I would be able to hear it very clearly. I could hear like the blood pulsing in my temple. I could hear like every internal like age groan that I did, like like I could hear that really loudly, it like in my ears, and that was a little bit disconcerting. About halfway through my high, I felt as though everyone was looking at me, which was the only downside. I feel as though the motor skills and the suspicion, like I felt like all eyes were on me when they weren't. People noticed that I was acting a little tired, but no one suspected that I was high until I told them. And also when they read that stupid fucking tweet that I made. It's a great tweet. I liked that tweet. But yeah. And then after, because I sat down, I had dinner with Sahel, and then I like went and mingled. Ali Rizvi stole me away for a little while, and I would do this thing where I would be like talking to someone and having like these really intellectual, deep conversations, and then like after about 10 minutes I'd be like, so I want to ask you something, and they'd be like, of course. And I would be like, how high am I coming off? Because I did mushrooms like a couple of hours ago, and they'd be like, you're high? And I'd be like, yeah. And they were like, I couldn't tell. And I'd be like, okay, great. And I did that to a few people. I feel like I did that to Ali Rizvi. I did that to a couple of other people that I met. And it was just like this really interesting experience. And also it was like a 5 to 6 hour long high, which isn't bad for 15 euros. You know, you can have as many drinks as you want and not get drunk, and you can pay through the nose for those. But I think psychedelics, if you're in Amsterdam, you should certainly try them. I would say start small and then progress. But we started with a middle tier one, and you know, it was good. I felt super safe, didn't feel violent or volatile in any way, didn't do anything irresponsible. I stayed safe, I let people know, I made the right choices like a responsible adult. So, yeah. So there you go. Those are my narcotic experience stories. I don't know what I'm going to call this video, but I also took a few questions from Twitter. The first one is from Riz the Bengali, and he was like, how was your experience with psychedelics? In a word, fantastic. I thought that was a very good experience for me. A lot of people have bad come downs from different kinds of drugs, but there was no come down. Like, it was just, I progressively got high, reached the high, and then I slowly came down from the high. So yeah, in a word, it was fantastic, despite, you know, having that little bit of self-consciousness and paranoia, and the very bad motor skills. From at TTAR blog, I'll tag you all when I post the video in a tweet. Did you learn anything from it? I don't know if I learned anything from it. I thought I might, but I didn't. I mean, I was at a humanist conference, so I learned things in that way. I certainly learned things about myself. Like, I discovered that I wouldn't want to be high all the time. That would be a terrible experience for me. I would feel like I was dying. And I learned that if I just sort of let go of all my insecurities, I just make friends much quicker. I feel like I get in the way of myself a lot. I discovered that because I made so many friends while being high, and good friends as well. Like, I was able to leave conversations that I didn't want to be a part of anymore, and like join conversations that I did want to be a part of with such confidence that I don't generally have in my life. I know I come across very confident in my videos, but I'm not a reserved person anymore, but I thought I was a reserved person. So yeah, I learned that I get in the way of myself a lot when it comes to meeting new people, and I just shouldn't be like that. And I've taken that leaf out. I'm certainly more confident now after the experience. In terms of like introspection, not really. I mean, I'm a pretty introspective person in general, not bragging, I'm just saying. And I had a couple of interesting discussions while, you know, Sahel was more or less looking after me. And we were talking about drug use, because Sahel doesn't even drink. Like, he's a champion. And he was like, I kind of get it, but it's just not me. And I was like, yeah, no, I get that. I just wanted to experience it. And he was like, yeah, I know. I fully understand that. And yeah, it's a great experience. From at Citrus Medicus. Sorry, I said that in a really weird way. I apologize. What did you eat or drink while under the influence? Okay, so I was very careful of not mixing. So while I was high, in both circumstances, did not drink any alcohol and did not mix any drugs. I feel like that's very important. Do not do that. It is a bad idea, especially if you are a novice. But I will say that while I was high on weed, while we were in the red light district, we got churros, and they were the best fucking churros we had ever had. And I don't know if that's because Amsterdam make the best churros or because I was high. I don't know. While I was on Truffles, The only thing I had was dinner, and it was a laborious experience, even though the food tasted amazing. I'm sure it was like very mediocre food. Sorry, Balie, you did a great job at providing food, but because it is, I'm not gonna continue that sentence because I don't want to offend you, and I don't want to minimize what your staff did for us, because your staff were absolute fucking champions. But I feel as though the food was, good, but it tasted even better because I was high. From Secular Hitchens, which is a patron of mine, and thank you for, donating to me. And for those of you who didn't know, I have a Patreon, and if you would like to support me, please feel free to. No obligation to, but if you would like to support me monetarily, I would greatly appreciate it. But Secular Hitchens is one of my patrons, so thank you very much. He has 2 questions. The first question is, are recreational drugs ever mentioned in Islam besides alcohol? Now, they're not mentioned by name, obviously. But because they come under the wing of narcotics, they are equally as haram. Smoking in different circles, some scholars say it's makruh, which is disliked, and some scholars say it's haram because you are slow poisoning yourself, you are killing yourself. When I was a Muslim, I took the opinion that smoking was haram, but because khamr or alcohol essentially, makes you not yourself, makes you drunk, most scholars take narcotics like weed, like mushrooms and everything else under that wing. Because it's a narcotic, it's considered haram. But none of them are mentioned by name in the Quran or in the Sunnah. At least not to my knowledge. The second question that Secular Hitchens asks is, what's your thought on drugs being legalized, e.g. marijuana? Now, I'm an individualist. I believe that individuals should be able to make whatever choices they want with their body, as long as they are not harming anyone else. But in terms, I'm not well read enough. I don't know the argument well enough to, really fall on either side. I would have to read up on it a bit more. I mean, blindly, if you put a gun to my head and was like, are you for or against marijuana? I probably would say, yeah, legalize it. I don't give a fuck. You can age regulate it. That's as much as I care about. As long as children aren't doing weed, as long as, 5-year-olds aren't doing them, I feel like I would be okay with weed being legalized for adults. But again, I don't know enough about it for me to make an educated decision, or a long video about it. Honestly, I think that the thing that I've learned since taking narcotics in Amsterdam, I feel as though it was only special because I was in Amsterdam to do it, because it's an experience that I can only do in a limited fashion, if we did these things all the time, they would have no value. This story wouldn't be an especially interesting story because everybody's doing this all the time. It's like talking about alcohol, when you're from a family that drinks alcohol all the time, or from a community, so they're not that interesting. Sorry, my camera may have cut off at some point. I apologize. I apologize a lot in my video because the quality is very subpar. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know where I stand on that. But if you put a gun to my head, I would probably say that I am okay with marijuana being legalized for adults in this country. But yeah, that is just my opinion. Yeah. So those are my stories. Sorry, I'm ill. Those are my stories. I hope that you found them enjoyable. The third installment that I wanted to... It's going to be part my last thing about Amsterdam, and also the first sort of thing that I talk about in terms of sex positivity in our community and stuff like that, is I want to talk about one night stands. Because I had 2 in Amsterdam, and on a 4-day holiday, I had 2 different one-night stands, and they were wildly different experiences, and I would like to share them. So yeah, it would be the last installment of my adventures in Amsterdam, or celebrating descent in Amsterdam. So yeah, look out for that, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. Again, if you would like to support me in a monetary fashion, I have a Patreon and also a PayPal that you can donate to. You are under no obligation to. I love you regardless. If you would like to support me in other ways, please do consider subscribing. Please do consider liking, sharing, commenting. If you didn't like the video or you thought that this was a heinous piece of garbage, please tell me why. Dislike the video, unsubscribe, blast me on Twitter, blast me in the comments, let me know. But thank you for spending this time with me, and I hope to see you in the next video, hopefully in a couple of days, because I would like to keep my video consistency to 2 a week. And if I can't do that, I will update you through Twitter. If you don't follow me on Twitter, my handle is AngusSpreadThin. And yeah, I will see you in the next video. So, goodbye.